Okay, so today I'd like you to take you through the process of editing and cleaning up your final paragraph for submission. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that all of our really simple stuff is taken care of, okay? So we need to make sure that up at the top we have our last name and page number, and that it is actually inserted using the page number feature where you go to Insert, Page Number, and then that will pop up there, and then you type your name. Making sure all parts of our paper are in Times New Roman size 12 font, and that everything is double spaced. That should be the easy part. Hopefully everybody is already there. So we're going to pretend that Jane Doe wrote this paper, so Doe, Doe matches. I'm asking you for this paper to come up with a creative original title. The title that I've come up with for my paper, for my paragraph, is To Rue the Art of Losing. So the way I came up with that, and a process that you could also use, is I thought about my tone word, rueful, and I thought about the content of my poem, and I kind of did a play on words and mashed those two ideas together. So our speaker is very rueful, she rues the art of losing, so I kind of integrated those two ideas together. Titles that would not work. One art is already taken. That's the title of my poem. That's no good. We can't call it tone analysis paper, paragraph, because that's just the title of the assignment, okay? So we want to come up with a creative and original title for our paragraph. So, To Rue the Art of Losing. All right, so pause here if any of those things are not completed yet. So now would be a good time to go through if you did not already come up with a nice heading and a good page number, all that stuff. Now's the time you should pause this video and do that. Okay, so as we're going through the paper, through my paragraph, excuse me, I want you to start thinking about a title for your own. So as I ask you to pause each time, I want you to think, okay, how could I use what I'm reading here to turn it into a title? So at the end, hopefully you'll have some ideas for a title. Okay, so the first thing we have here, the very first sentence of your paragraph needs to be a clear, concise topic sentence. I suggest copying mine exactly. Obviously not exactly, but you're going to put your own title of your own poem and your own poet in there, and your own very clear and specific tone word. Okay, so that is the point we are proving throughout the paragraph. So if you need to go back and make sure that your topic sentence is almost exactly like mine and contains all the same elements as mine, please do that now. Okay. Moving on, our next sentence should be our first point in our set of P progressions. So this is the P, and the point evidence analysis. This is the point. So my first sub-point of my topic sentence. So basically what this should be is an argument that proves the topic sentence, right? It's something that I've noticed within the poem that I think proves the tone is rueful. So the speaker, a woman attempting to convince herself that her losses are bearable, sets the poem's rueful tone in the first stanza, suggesting that the ability to gloss over even the most profound losses isn't hard to master. That's my point. I'm focusing on the content of the poem. I'm saying, I think the poem is rueful because of the stuff that she's talking about in the poem. I do not necessarily need to use a quote in my point. I just happen to do so because I think it works well here, and I think it contributes to my point and shows my connection to the text. If you chose not to include a quote here, that is all right. That is perfectly fine. So take a second now and make sure that your first point is a sub-point of your argument made in your topic sentence. All right. Next we would do our evidence. So I'm integrating evidence here, and remember, evidence isn't proving anything, it's just providing something from the actual text of the poem that supports the idea you asserted in your point. So, in the second and third lines of the poem, Bishop Speaker suggests that so many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. When you are looking at your evidence here, please make sure that it is a sentence that clearly makes sense, that integrates a quote within that sentence. So note, even if I took the quotation marks away, this sentence makes sense by itself, right? That so many things seem filled with the intent to be lost, that their loss is no disaster. So I also have my in-text citation. I had one here too. Some people call them parenthetical citations. What we want to have is, because I already mentioned second and third lines, I don't need to put 1 and 3 here. I need to put Bishop to let my reader know that I'm mentioning the poet, that I am citing from something specific. The period always goes after the parentheses and after your in-text citation. Take a moment now to make sure 2 things: that your evidence is integrated within a sentence that makes logical sense and supports your point, and that your parenthetical citation is accurate, that your in-text citation has everything it needs. It has the page numbers if you need it. It has a period after the last parentheses. That's important. So stop now and do that if you need to. Moving forward, the next thing we need to work on is taking a look at our analysis. So we have point, evidence, analysis. Okay, so highlighted here is my analysis. The speaker's bitter assertion that the thing she has lost seemed intent on leaving her reveals her rueful tone. She cannot blame herself for losing so many things on the surface, so she blames the things for setting themselves up to be lost. Because I did mention parts of the quote, I do have an in-text citation here at the end, which is perfectly fine, but really what you want to do in your analysis is tell your reader, how is the fact that she's saying so many things seem filled with the intent to be lost, that their loss is no disaster, relate to the point that she's trying to gloss over profound losses. So obviously your own argument will be different, but you really want to be able to clearly see the connection between your evidence and your analysis and the point you've made. And they all should be coming back up here to prove this topic sentence. Okay, so I decided to focus on the idea that she is blaming the items for the loss, right? She is sorrowful and dealing with this rueful tone. She has a lot of regret in her of things that she's lost, but she cannot accept that. So it's even more sort of rueful, because rueful does have that very slightly humorous tinge to it. So we want to use that focus. Okay, so go through and make sure that that analysis is logical and makes sense. Go through and right now, before you stop this, make sure that you do not have it so it says, this quote shows, this proves. Do not mention the quote. Do not tell me what it proves. Get right into what you would say after that. Tell me directly what the speaker's saying of your quote has to do with your tone. Okay. As I'm getting into my second P progression, which begins right here, here's my second point, right? Point, then evidence here, and then analysis here. My second point is that Bishop uses the repetitious form of the villanelle to give the speaker a rueful tone, okay? This is where I'm adding transition words. Okay, some transition words you might be interested in using. Furthermore, in addition, for example, right? And those need to fit in where they make logical sense. There are lots and lots of lists of transition words available online. Are all of the words on those lists good to use in a formal analytic paragraph? No, but use your best judgment. I really like the word furthermore because it's telling your reader that I'm going to continue the same argument that I've been making. I'm going to connect my ideas to the same ideas I've been using to prove that the tone is rueful all throughout this paragraph. Okay? So furthermore, Bishop uses the repetitious form of the villanelle. And then I go through and I provide the rest of my second P progression. I want you to feel free to take the time to read this. I will post, obviously, my model here online for you to take a look at, but I'm not going to go through the entire P progression. I really wanted to focus on showing you this use of a transition word. I have a lot of introductory phrases. I've really worked to make it flow smoothly throughout. So really what the purpose of a transition word is to connect the reader to all of the pieces of your argument, to connect the ideas all together, and to let it flow smoothly throughout your paragraph. So working on adding some transition words. You can Google transition words if you feel the need to. You can use the ones that you feel comfortable with. But as we're moving down to my final point for this video, I want to talk about transition words as they relate to concluding sentences. So I am forbidding you right now from using to conclude or in conclusion or any mention of conclusion. Okay, it just sounds very youthful and like it's from middle school. So we're going to try to use a better concluding transition word. I really like thus or therefore as they fit because thus is really giving us the impression is like, so here you go. This is why I made this argument. Excuse me. This is why I made this argument. So my concluding sentence is right here, starting with thus. What I did is I thought about the argument that I made throughout my entire paragraph. I took a look at my topic sentence. I knew I needed to mention tone. I know I needed to mention some of the things I talked about in the paragraph. So I reworded the topic sentence and added a little bit to it to make it a little bit more of a so what for the reader. Why did I read this? Why do I care about it? It also adds a little bit to what I already had in my topic sentence because the reader who's reading this conclusion is a different reader than the one you met when he or she was reading this introduction. So, because now they have read all of this, so now they understand a lot more, so you can give them a really profound kind of conclusion here. So here's what I went with. Bishop's choices in both the content and form, see? Always editing. In both content and form, establish her speaker's rueful tone, which allows readers to experience the tragic humor of her denial of loss's profound effects. Always editing. So going through and making sure that everything is perfect. But my final sentence is, Bishop's choices in both content and form establish her speaker's rueful tone, which allows readers to experience the tragic humor of her denial of loss's profound effects. Okay. I am expanding the idea out a little bit and talking about really the definition of rueful is like kind of a tragically sorrowful, right, and regretfully looking back. So I'm mentioning kind of the definition here, but I'm also mentioning why she's using that rueful tone, what the purpose of it was, and I added my 2P progression points. So content was my first one, and form was my second. So if you would like to try to do the same thing, mentioning the points that you're making in your final sentence, that would be a really good way to expand and reword your topic sentence to make an effective conclusion. I hope that all of that was helpful. I hope to return tomorrow to talk to you guys in more depth about this project specifically, and good luck. Thanks so much for listening.